We may lose the small battles, but win the big war.
For the times they are a-changing.
Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Loving, written and directed by Jeff Nichols, starring Ruth Negga, Joel Edgerton, and of course it wouldn't be a Jeff Nichols film without a small role for Michael Shannon. The film is about a interracial couple in the late 1950s who are married in Washington, D.C. but live in Virginia. But the problem with that is that back then in Virginia, interracial couples were not able to legally be married. So this film delves into kind of an interpersonal relationship or interpersonal crises for them because they have to essentially validate their relationship with one another, which is the basis for a landmark case called Loving versus the state of Virginia that went all the way to the Supreme Court and changed federal laws when it came to interracial marriage. But while that sounds like it would lead to a rather large, almost courtroom drama-esque, bombastic film with wonderfully dramatic moments and things of that nature, the film is very much not that. The film is very small, very understated. Everything about this film is very nuanced, very personal, and that is what I love about the film, but I can also understand why that would be some things that people would not like about the film, because in the film's understatement, it has this personality for not really stating much of anything, but I feel like there is still so much there. It's just all underneath the surface. All of this nuance and thematic work that's in the film that is all understated is all contained within the performances of Ruth Negga as Mildred Loving and Joel Edgerton as Richard Loving. And this film is really much a showcase for those two actors' skills. I have to say this, Ruth Negga in this film is so fantastic, but Joel Edgerton has been an actor who's been around for a few years. He has been around in films such as Animal Kingdom, as well as Warrior, as well as The Gift from last year, which I thought was a fantastic film, and these two actors together on screen have, I think, wonderful chemistry as this couple, because if you do some research about these real-life individuals, you realize that they are very much an understated couple. They don't have large dramatic soliloquies or monologues or things of that nature. These were very simple people who simply just wanted to live their own lives together as husband and wife. They didn't want a large court case. They didn't want the state of Virginia locking them up or the police locking them up or things like that. They just wanted to be left alone to live their lives. And the film does a fantastic job of honoring those two individuals. I think it really shows who they were. In their simplicity of their ideals is a very human ideal. This idea of individuality, this idea of freedom to love who you want to love, no matter who tells you can't, no matter what the law says, or things of that nature. And what I also really love about the film is that the themes are very timeless. Themes like love, things like racism. Racism is something that is very prevalent now in our society. It is really amazing that if you watch these films that take place back in the 1950s, the 1960s, these themes are still relevant. The rhetoric that is in this film when it's come to denigrating African Americans or minorities in general is rhetoric still used today in the same manner. So the film, I think, is very modern in that sense, although it does take place back into the 1950s and into the 1960s, because this film does take place over several years in the lives of these two people. As you can assume, a case going all the way up to the Supreme Court takes some time. But I cannot emphasize how great the acting is in the film, how nuanced it is. Every little tick, every little stutter, every little movement or body gesture in the film is so wonderfully nuanced that you really feel a real-world sense about these characters, that they are actually real. And that is really great to see. As for Jeff Nichols' direction, I think his direction is fantastic in this film. By this point in his career, he has a great sense of being able to shoot rather nuanced characters, being able to shoot them with a lot of emotion in every scene, and also a lot of interesting close-ups, specifically when both Ruth Negga and Joel Edgerton are in a scene together. They're shot very close together to give you a sense of closeness or intimacy in their relationship, which I thought was a very interesting technique to use. Also, this is not his first film of the year. His other film, Midnight Special, is something completely different than this film, so it really goes to show how much range he has as a filmmaker, how much he's able to do, and I'm really excited to see what he does going forward. Although I am a gigantic fan of Jeff Nichols, I own several of his films. I love his films, everything from Mud to Take Shelter, even this year's film Midnight Special, but it is not a perfect film. Like I said, there is a lot of understatement in this film. It is a very slow film. The plot is very slow, very gradual. There's not a lot of big moments, I would say, in this film to really give the film kind of an oomph or a real gravitas. It's so understated that with that lack of gravitas, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be very bored by the film. I know that seems to be a criticism, that there really isn't a lot going on and that the film feels very languished or boring. I felt myself riveted because of the characters and because of the situation they were in, but I do agree there is not a lot happening in this film. Although the court case that they are involved in is a huge court case, it's something that changed federal law, but you don't see really any of these big typical court scenes or that you would see in most dramas or most court case dramas and things of that nature, so that really takes a back seat. The court case, which really changed many people's lives, really takes a back seat in this film to just tell the story about these two characters and their relationship. And I feel like the film loses a little bit because of that, because I thought there could have been a better meshing between both sides. It also brings me to kind of an interesting casting choice. One that's, I wouldn't say bad, but I thought odd, and that would be Nick Kroll as the head defendant in these court case that went all the way to the Supreme Court. He is a very odd kind of casting because he's typically a comedic actor. He doesn't do dramatic roles typically that often, and I also felt like he was trying to have an accent in this film, but it kind of drifted out, so I wasn't really sure what accent he was trying to have. I thought they could have had someone perhaps a little more proficient in dramatic acting, but that's not necessarily a backbreaker for the film for me. I would say that the film is indeed very, very good all around, at least for me personally. So, with all that being said, I'm definitely going to give this film a rather high score, and that's mostly due to how fantastic the acting is. And I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. If you like this video, please check out my other movie reviews as well as my episode reviews for the various comic book television series.